Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Nope Coach podcast. This is your host, Suzanne Culberg. I can already tell this is going to be a fun episode. I'm welcoming Carol Kabaale. I think I got it. Yes. And we're going to talk about boundaries because, that's my jam, and small business because that's another one of my jams, and Facebook ads. So if you're listening to this and you're new in business or you haven't yet started ads and you're like, is this for me? It's going to be a fascinating conversation for me because, as many of you know, I don't really use social media anymore. But just because you don't use the platform doesn't mean you can't use ads to drive traffic to wherever it is that you are, your newsletter list, your YouTube, whatever. I don't know why I'm talking like this because I'm not the expert here. So, Carol, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Like, truly. I'm so excited for all the things. It's going to be great.
All the things. So, I guess my very first question before we get into the ads, because not everyone who listens to my show has a business, but something we were chatting about when we were talking about doing an episode is boundaries in business. Because as many of us, we get into business, and I don't know, this is my question for you. Did you leave like a 9 to 5 for freedom and flexibility?
Oh gosh, I didn't leave it for freedom and flexibility per se, but I did leave it for a lifestyle. Let's call it that. So
And in the
I
beginning,
like to say, yeah.
did you have said lifestyle? Because so many people leave a 9 to 5 to work 24/7, and it's, not always, but a lot of people find they're their own, that being your own worst boss, you're kind of more of an asshole than your actual boss ever was.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, you'd have to ask my team members, but I think I'm pretty nice. I don't know, but you'd have to ask them. I think in the beginning, I did everything right. I went to school, I went to university, I got a corporate job, and I worked in hospitality, but at the back of house, I used to work in business development, and I loved it. But if anybody's ever worked in hospitality, whether you work in back of house or you work in front of house, you know that you don't work 9 to 5. You basically work 9 until the guests go to sleep. So that was great. That was great until it wasn't, right? It got to the point where I was very young and I didn't know words like burnout. I didn't know words like boundaries. I didn't know that I could say no. To me, it was like, I have a job, I have to keep it because I'm an adult now and I have to just make sure I don't get fired so that I don't have to go back home to my parents. And it was like a lot of pressure. And I was just like, whatever they threw at me, I said yes. And I was like, yes, yes. There was nothing I couldn't figure out. There was nothing I couldn't YouTube. There was nothing I couldn't not get done. And I was exhausted. Fast forward a little bit, my husband, we had been high school sweethearts and we'd been dating long distance, which is really cute. And he proposed. And he proposed at a very interesting time in my life, if I'm quite honest with you. He proposed just before I went on my very first big work trip. Like, I just gotten this promotion and it was so good. Like, I was so flippin' excited. These people put me on a plane from where I am. I'm based in South Africa, and they took me all the way to Dubai. And I was there for 2 weeks of training. I had my new promotion. I had my little blazer. I was like killing the flippin' game. I was killing the game. Okay. And then I was like, wait a minute. I just got engaged and I'm not even enjoying it. Like, I'm here on this work trip. I literally got engaged yesterday and today I'm on a plane. How does that make sense? And when I get back, I'm not even going to see my fiance because we live in different towns. And even if he lived here, I get to work at 9 and I leave at again, when the guests go to sleep. So is this the life that I really want? And I said, no. So that's why I say I chose a lifestyle. I chose having a life where I could be with my partner, a life where hopefully one day I get to have tiny humans and I get to interact with them and be at their things and I don't know, be a I bring watermelon and lemon slices. Oh, do kids eat lemons? No, oranges.
Oranges.
See, I'm not ready. I'm not ready yet. Not quite yet.
I don't think you
Gonna
ever
give-
are ready. Suddenly you just thrust a small squabbling thing into your arms and it's like, you'll know what to do. The motherly instinct will kick in. You'd be like, okay.
Oh, weird. So sorry. No,
But
I'm
no,
gonna give
I
the
love what you're saying here because the lifestyle, sometimes, you don't have to have burnt out. You don't have to hate your job. You don't have to get to the point where you're like, I can't deal with this anymore. But you can
Yeah.
start questioning, is this the life I want to lead? So I
Yes.
went to university. I was going to be a
Yes.
doctor. So I went to medical school, which is a 6-year degree. And I knew pretty much day one it wasn't for me, but my parents were like, my daughter's going to be a doctor, and they were so proud, so I kept going. And my husband, well, boyfriend at the time, then fiance, now husband, he had a job where he was away so much of the time, and then when he was home, I was at the hospital because doing rotations and stuff. And I was like, is this the life that we want to lead, that we're ships passing in the night? And then
Yes.
if we did have small children, which now we do, and they're not so small now, they're 9 and 11, but
Aw.
are we going to raise them together, or are we going to be just passing them back and forward, or all this sort of thing? So it's things for the listeners to consider. You don't have to be burnt out. You don't have to hate what you're doing. You don't have to be exhausted, but you can be like, is this the life that I want to lead? And if
Yes.
no, then what kind of changes can I make? And it can be scary and confronting, especially an entrepreneurial journey. It's like, as I said, you being your own boss is exciting and freeing and whatever, but also scary and freaky and all these things. So you're away. And when did
Yes.
you decide when you're away, actually, this I want to make the change,
Yes.
or did you come back? I want you to keep going with the story. I'm fascinated.
No, don't stay. So I was away and I just knew in my heart, I was like, I can't do this. And as soon as I got back, I texted my husband and I said, by the way, I'm going to quit. And then he said, oh, that's great. Did you get another job? And I said, no. And he's like, so what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm going to move in with you. And then he was like, okay. And I was like, and I'm going to figure it out then. And then he was like, okay. He's very analytical. So he was just like, I think in that moment, just being very supportive and just being like, I'm just going to let her go through this. And then I'm going to like circle back because I'm sure there's a plan here. There must be a plan here. And there really was. My plan was like, I was going to come to where he lived and then I was going to find a job and that was going to be it. But at least, even if I worked, like you said, 2 ships in the night, passing each other, I was in the same town as him. We were under the same roof. It was that kind of thing that I wanted to do. And then I had a job, again, still in corporate, in hotels, and I hated it because here's one thing I didn't realize. Even though my first job was so intense and so crazy, the work-life culture in that company was the best thing I've ever experienced. And in this new place, it was like so terrible. I had the worst people. Like some people were nice, but some people were just like so extra. They were not, as the trend says, very demure, very cutesy, very mindful. No, they were not. They were terrible people. I just hated it. And then one day I just kind of like quit. Like because I started to get depressed, and I had a lot of absenteeism. And I got like physically sick and physically ill. And I just said, before these people fire me, I'm going to quit because I don't want to be fired.
Well
So
done for
I'm just
hitting
gonna...
it off at the pass. And also, that's such a good point that you raise as well. The workplace culture can vary significantly. So I remember before I had kids, I had an office job in a call center, and there was a few people there who lived closer to the other branch. Like they were driving nearly 2 hours to work each day. And I, in pure curiosity, said, there's one just there. Like, why don't you work at that one? Like, naively. And they're like, you don't want to work at that one. Like, it's the same organization, the same mother company, the same thing. But that office is toxic and horrible and just no, like we would rather spend nearly 4 hours on the road every day to come here than to work there. And I found that phenomenal. But, you know,
Yeah.
so if you are listening to this and, you know, you don't have to go and become an entrepreneur. We both are, but it doesn't mean, you know, that you do. But sometimes even within the same organization or shifting an office, doing the same thing somewhere else, you can have a totally different experience. Okay. So you
I
quit
agree.
this job. Did you
Yes.
know you wanted to be an
Quit this
entrepreneur
job.
then? Or were you still kind of like, I'll figure it out?
Yes. No, then after that, I decided, yes, I am going to be an entrepreneur. And I kind of looked within myself. I think everybody can be an entrepreneur, to be quite honest. I think you just have to find something, either two things, either a skill you have that people will pay you for, or something you like doing that people will pay you for. Both have like contrary things, because the skill you have, you may hate doing that thing, but people are going to pay you money, and that's fine. You know, and you can make up the happiness in other ways, because you get to be at home, you get to have pajamas, you get to like have other freedoms, but you don't like necessarily what you do. Or you can have the other one where you really do something you love, plus people pay you. I am a mixture of both, if I'm quite honest with you. I have a very good skill. I help people with Facebook ads, and I also enjoy just letting people's message be shown in the world. Like, that is my happy spot.
Yeah.
So
I'm thinking of Venn diagram, what you love, what people will pay you for, what you're skilled
yes,
at, and then what's that ikigai or whatever it's called, like that thing in the
yes,
middle?
yes, the one
Yes.
in the middle is your happiness. Exactly. So if you can find sort of that, you're fine. So I started in Facebook ads, and it really, I did a course. So a little bit back, I did a course, I got my certification, and I started with practice clients, which if anybody is thinking about getting into entrepreneurship, I would highly suggest doing this way of doing things. Don't just like take someone's money, say, hey, I'm starting out. You are literally my first client. I am going to practice with you and be very transparent, right? And in that, two things can happen. Like, it's your opportunity to learn from yourself and set up your standing operating procedures or SOPs. So how are you going to bring someone along? How are you going to welcome them? What does doing the work look like? What is your timelines? What are your boundaries? And that, for me, in the beginning, that's when it all went to
Oh.
the only way I can describe it. It all went to
So I'm going to jump in there with one caveat to what you
yeah.
said, because I love what you just said about practice clients, but given I am the boundaries coach,
Yes.
what I would do, and you do you, like with anything, I hope that you listen to
Yes,
this
of course.
show and you take ideas and you try it out. I would say, this is a new offer. Like, you know, I'm all about being upfront. It was funny when I went to medical school, people would ask me, have you ever done this before? And I was always honest, because, you know, I want them to have full agency about whether they want me to stitch them up or not. But anyway, I digress. I would be honest. I wouldn't give it for free, simply
Yeah.
because so many people, I've got this service. Oh my gosh, it sounds amazing. I'm in. And then life happens, the kids get sick, whatever, they forget about it. And you feel like you're hounding them. So what I would do is say, it's going to be, pick a price, $100, $150, however much. Let them
Yeah.
know that it's refundable at the end of the service. And I do it in
wow.
exchange for a testimonial or something. Honest, not just 5 stars, you're amazing, whatever. So say I'm making up a service here. Carol, I'm going to sell water bottles. Will you be my first client? This will be like $50 for this demo water bottle. And you'll be like, it's amazing, Suzanne. And then when it arrives and you've tested it out and you've written me a testimonial saying what your honest feedback about this water bottle, then I refund you the $50. Because the thing is, people will come through. They'll send you the photos, the copy, the colors, whatever it is they need. There's so much more when they have some skin in the game. Whereas you see so many people, I'm after case studies or I'm after this, and hundreds of people comment. And then, you know, getting them through to the end of the line, especially in your case, if you're doing Facebook ads, or if people listen to this, if you're creating websites for people, if you're doing SEO, if you're doing something that's very time intensive and you're waiting, like I bet you can't write the ads if you don't have the photos and you don't know what they're doing. And, you know, so it's kind of like you're there waiting.
Can't really put anything together until I get some info from you. Truly.
Yeah, so be really clear on the number of people, be really like, so say you've got, and also I've got 5 places available, or I have 3 places available. This is what's involved. This is what I'll need from you. Because sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to be all demanding. But if you're like, this is going to be great, and they're like, yes, and then suddenly you're like, now I remember the first person I went to for a website, because everyone told me I needed a website. She was new too. And she's like, oh, you'll be my first website. And I was like, this is going to be amazing. And anyway, she was like, okay, so I need your copy. And honestly, this is how green I was. I was like, well, what's that? I need your colors. I need your photos. And I could just feel, what? I didn't know what any of these things were.
Where do I get that?
I thought that's what you did. Yeah. And I wasn't being sarcastic. So it's kind of like, this is what's involved. This is how much it will be. It will be refundable at the end of the project after I've got the testimonial, honest feedback, like even if you didn't like it. And this is what was required, so that you both know. And this is the time frame I want. Like sometimes too, people will send a message and like, it's like, say you have written a book. I need you to be, I'd like you to be a guest editor or a proofreader. Oh yeah, sure. That's great. So you send the book and you're kind of waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. Not that I've ever done this. I'm talking for a friend. And you're like, so it's kind of like now I'd be like, I've got a book. May or may not have a second book coming. I'm looking for some guest editors. It's a 2-week time frame. Who's in? I'll take the first 3. And then like let them know I need it by this, or I'd like you to do this chapter and you to do this chapter. Like, but but be really clear, because sometimes people are wanting to help and we're excited and they're excited, and then it all goes to the pasture because of failure to communicate. Anyway, back to your story. So you started out, you were like getting, but I love the idea of free, cheap, low cost practice. Don't suddenly say, like, you see this all the time. Are you on Threads at all? That platform?
Yes. That's also like a lot. Threads is also a lot, but that's another.
That's the only platform I'm really that active in, just because I find it amusing. But you see people, and on their Facebook or on whatever, they're like, I help you make 10,000 a month or whatever. And then on Threads, they're like, no one's bought my thing. And I'm just like, you for real? Like, anyway, that's a real judgmental moment. But people who their website looks amazing, their ads look great, you think, oh my gosh, you give them your money. And I've done this. I remember the very first course I wanted to make, I hired someone and she was like, I help you make a course from nothing to this, to this, to this. And I was like, oh my God, her website was amazing. Her copy was great. I bought the thing. We get on the first call. She's like, so what do you want to do today? And I'm like, excuse me? And she's like, so what do you want to talk about? I'm like, aren't we making a course? So don't like position yourself to be.
Do you want to do something else before we do the course? Or when did that happen?
Yeah. Like, and she's just like, oh, these are just coaching. And I'm like, coaching? Like, don't you have a framework? Like, isn't there? Make sure you deliver whatever it is that you're selling.
Day one. What are we doing today? Yeah, I 100% agree with everything you said with the practice clients. I personally did charge my practice clients, but I didn't have such clear expectations. And I think with that came the problems, because as you said, 90% of the problems come down to communication or lack of communication. You know, if people understand what is required of them from both parties, then it makes it easier to move forward. And sometimes, you know, you kind of have to go through it to understand what's required.
I think that's
which sounds terrible.
Point. You don't realize, you don't know what you don't know. So like my very first website thing where I didn't know what copy was and I felt so green and dumb, you're not going to know that until you know that. You might take your practice client, you might be like, I love this as a hobby. I do not want to do this for the rest of my life. And finding this out is a good thing.
Yes, exactly. And now you're like, well, that for me really opened my eyes to a lot of things, because when I thought I had to do this new Facebook ads thing, I was like, oh, I have to do everything. I have to build them the website where the ad is going to be on. I have to do their emails. I have to do the graphics. I have to do the copy. I have to write the script for them to do the video. That's like 5 different people. But I was convinced that I needed to be those 5 people for them. Where
you don't know in the beginning, like you wouldn't know until you start it, like, and then you start and you realize, actually, like my initial website person, it was both of us. She didn't know and I didn't know. So like, had she said, I build the website, so I require from you this, 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 and this, then I could be like, oh, well, I'm not ready for this yet. So if someone comes to you for ads and you're like, okay, I need this, this, and this, and you're like, what? Okay, we might not be at this stage yet.
Yeah, exactly. So that really helped me, like, especially from there. That's what I learned from it. I also learned, like you said, like you also touched upon, what I liked and what I didn't. And very quickly, what didn't bring me money and what I didn't like, I outsourced. I removed it from my life. I was like, I don't like copy, but clients need copy. So let's get a copywriter on our
So,
team.
question with
You
that
know?
is, so is that
Mm,
when you work with people, and this is for everyone, it's such a great way of
yeah.
looking about it. Do you hire, are you like the agency kind of thing and people come to you and then you go, this is the copywriter and you know, this is the total cost? Or are you like, this is what you need to bring to me? If that
Mm.
question is clear.
So I love this question because I've done both models. And the one personally to me that has brought me the most peace is when I only do one thing. So currently I do the ads and I have preferred partners. So
Yes.
I would be like, hey, do you know what? You are ready to run ads, but you're struggling with boundaries a little bit. Like, girl, like you're out here and I'm seeing that this is not for you. I have a friend. Her name is Suzanne. I think you guys should chat and I think you guys should meet each other. And once you figure that out, let's circle back and then let's run the ads. Because all that ads really do, in a nutshell, for anyone listening or someone who's thinking, like, oh, this is so complicated. No, ads aren't complicated. They're just like a magnifying glass on what you have. And if what you have is good, then it will be shown
Yes.
good. And if what you have is a poop emoji, then that is what people will see.
I love
It's
this.
gonna
It's
be
a magnifying glass. I don't know anything about ads. That's why I'm like having this conversation. But I guess teach in people's programs sometimes, one of which is the business one, which makes me laugh because I'm not a business coach, I'm a boundaries coach. But you know, I will fill in. I like helping out. And they were obsessed with ads, had never had a paying client. And I was like,
yeah.
I don't know, like, don't ask me about ads. I'm not going to give you any advice. But the one thing I
Mm,
consider is what you said, ads magnify it. So if you've never sold anything organically, throwing a bunch of
yes.
money at it doesn't guarantee that it's going to sell. So I'd have
No.
some sort of proof of concept, even if it's
Mm-hmm.
one or two. It doesn't need to be a lot, but just
Yes.
is there an audience for this? Because say you're like really passionate about underwater basket weaving, like that might be
Mm,
your jam. Are there people
yeah.
out there Googling it? Is there people who are like, I want to learn how to do this? And if there is, great. And if there's not, it doesn't matter how much money you put behind it. I don't know if it'll go that well. So
Yeah. I totally get that. On top of that, it's like there may be people who enjoy those kind of baskets, right? But have you ever sold that basket? Because I love
yes.
it when people come to me. And I'm not gonna pick on coaches, but I'm gonna use them as the
Go
example.
for it. I might be a coach, but like I've got a whole playlist on my YouTube. It's called Scam / Questionable Coaching Practices. So I know I'm in the
Oh my
industry
God.
where there is a
So
lot of stuff that's questionable.
I think we should have another call just for that one because I've got stories
We've got a
and receipts
series happening here, I can see.
and receipts. So I think what's with that, a lot of coaches, or there's this trend of coaches. Let's not generalize. There's this trend in coaches where everybody and anyone can be a coach nowadays, which is good, and it's also very scary. And with that, people come and they'll come to someone like me and they'll be like, I can get my clients to six, seven figures. And I'm like, great, good for you.
I know where this
Good
is going. I can
bring
feel my belly
wealth into the
clenching.
planet. I get very excited for them. And I'm like, okay, great. So what is your offer and how many have you sold? Oh no, I haven't sold any. Okay, but organically, how many clients have you had in the past? Oh, I've had one, maybe two. Okay, was it the same offer you're telling me now that gets them to 6 and 7 figures? No, it was for something else. And this, so what you're telling me is that you don't have a tried and tested offer and you want to test with ads this offer that's unproven, and then you want me to be responsible for your lack of results. Is that correct?
That to
And then
me,
that
it screams charlatan. It's so it gives the whole industry a bad name. Like,
yes,
and it's like, it's funny because when I say side tangent, but this is my show, we can
yes,
tangent over here.
inside tangent, come back.
I'm a coach who works with
Yes.
boundaries. I teach what I most need to know, because I've had very poor boundaries, and I'm not like some guru breatharian on a mountain who doesn't struggle anymore. But the reason I coach on it is because of the journey and because of the clients I've worked with. I don't believe that you can coach on something in terms of life coaching that you have had no experience with. And I've had this argument with so many friends, like, what about sports people? Are you saying that you can't be a diving coach at the Olympics unless you've dived at the Olympics yourself? And I'm like, not so much. But if you don't know anything about diving, but then again, Ted Lasso is one of my favorite TV shows. Have you ever watched Ted Lasso?
Yes, exactly.
He doesn't know the sport, but
he doesn't know the sport, but to his credit, he is a sports coach.
Yes.
It's like your diving like example. Does that person at least know how to swim? Have they played water polo before? Did they do surfing? Is there some water activity or coaching background to help and support them? Now, I'm not saying people who teach 6 or 7 figures have to have 6 or 7 figures. By no means. I'm just saying, have people bought from you, and do they have results?
Proof of concept? Like, I remember one lady I invested with said she'd had a 6-figure business. So I was like, okay, cool. You know, I bought her thing. I was very confused. Anyway, whole long story short, it turns out she had a 6-figure business in waste removal. So like picking up of garbage and stuff. But she was selling mindset coaching and working with people like me who do mindset. And it's like, but you haven't built a business in this. You haven't had a service business. You've had a product business. They're very, very different. And anyway, it's just kind of like, what do you know about selling coaching online? You know about how to organize pickup services for waste, which is great. But that's just like, if I was a brain surgeon and I'm going to teach you to be a heart surgeon, well, you know, just a bit lower, just cut a bit down. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. It's like, no. Anyway,
and truly,
we got
all of these things. All of these things. No, I'm going to bring it back. All of these things go back to our boundaries.
Yes.
Because a person as myself, I could have sat there and not had boundaries and not had integrity and said, okay, I'm going to help you. I'm going to take you on as a client. I'm going to facilitate this. And that also wouldn't be great, because for me, I would now have to create the impossible out of nothing, which is terrible. And again, the communication, like the expectation is not there, because I have told this person I'm going to get them a result because I was unethical, because I decided like, okay, yeah, sure, let's just go with it. I think it also takes understanding yourself and understanding what you will and will not do, which is a form of a boundary, before you make those decisions, not only in business, but in life. You know, we 100%. Often are taught right or wrong, like at school, like, hey, don't steal or don't do this. Same thing applies in every single decision you make, you know?
And also sometimes too, it's like, when someone does say no to you, like to say I came to you for ads and I'm like, Carol, I teach 8-figure entrepreneurs, because 6 and 7 figures, they're just beyond now. It's 8 and 9 figures. I keep seeing ads for that. It's just like cringe.
And I can't believe where they're ready, but
if people say no to you, I'm the Nope coach after all, it's in service to both of you. Because say Carol's like, sure, Suze, let's go. And not only do I not make a cent, I'm not happy because ads didn't work. Carol doesn't know what she's doing. Carol doesn't get a good testimonial or a good word of mouth or me referring, you know, so it's in service to everyone. If you say that, you know, we're not a fit because of this reason, or as you said, this is the area I think you need to work on, which is copy. I recommend this person, which is this. So the very first coach I hired, like I hired a coach as a run-of-the-mill, just average person, didn't know anything about coaching. And she had a coaching training, which I was curious about. And she said to me, work with me first as an individual, then come and do the coaching training. You don't see that very often. Everyone's like, just, you can work on yourself concurrently and whatever you're going to give me, just take all my money. And at the time I was a little bit irritated, because I was like, well, I just want to, like, I think this sounds like an awesome profession. She's like, no, experience it for yourself first, then we can talk. And the integrity of that, I think it's magical. But tying this back to boundaries and your business and your journey, so you've quit your job, you've started this, you've taken on the practice clients. What happens next?
Okay, so I took on the practice clients. Some were great, some were not. We've learned those lessons now. We've chatted about them. And fast forward a little bit, I decided, okay, building momentum, I start having a retainer client. So I start having people that stay on. And my next little obstacle was growing a team. And of course, because here's the other fun fact no one tells you. When you're an entrepreneur, it's just you. So you're responsible for everything. And that is a lot. Also, a lot of my clients were based in the US or the UK. And in the US particularly, there were a lot of clients in that like PT time zone, which is like the furthest one. And that one, I'm like, no offense, if you guys are on there, like, love you, great stuff, but I can't work with you.
For South
It's
Africa,
also like,
it'd be almost impossible. You know what's funny though? The PT time zone is the one that works best for the
for
Sydney part of
you.
Australia. So, because
Oh,
Australia has 5 time zones, but you know,
yeah,
and that's the thing too, finding the time zone balance. It's like you might not just be a fit because of actual physicality in that way.
physicality. Yes. So I had clients in various time zones. That's something that I also had to scale back. And because of that, and I hadn't learned that yet, I was working at ridiculous times. I would work until 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. I would be exhausted. And the one day my husband actually found me like asleep at my desk.
It doesn't surprise me.
And he was like, did you not, like, he knew I didn't go to bed, but he's like, did you really stay here the whole time? Like, I thought maybe you were like on the couch or you watched a movie, fell asleep, like you were here. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And then it started to affect me like mentally. And I didn't know it yet, but I started to see a psychologist, or I started going to therapy, and I realized I was burnt out. And that was like the first time ever someone had said that to me, because it's not something that like in my culture, like we speak about, or in my family, we spoke about what is burned out. You just work, you just do it. Like I remember expressing these things to like things like my parents, and my mom was like, Carol, you can't be tired, you're young. And I was like, she's right. I can't be tired. I'm young. Like, what's wrong with me? Let me just carry on, get on with it, you know? And it was very fascinated that someone validated what I was feeling. This person was like, you're tired. And I was like, I am. And they were like, you're exhausted. I am. And I have this never ending to-do list of things to do. So it was very nice to have someone to validate those feelings for me. It was also around that time where I too got a business coach. I had a very positive experience with mine, I must say. She was really nice and she was very structured. And she was like, this is what we're going to do. Step 1, step 2. I actually learned to fire some of my clients because I didn't
We
like them.
could have a whole conversation about that, because once again, it can be in service to everybody. Sometimes wrapping up an engagement ahead of time is a win-win.
Yes, yes. And that's what I did. I got rid of some people and I made space for people who were financially great, but were also the right vibe. They were like my kind of people. Like I got on a call and I was like, yes, it's Suzanne. Oh, yes, it's this person. I wasn't like, oh, dear gosh, just like swallow me whole today. Like I cannot be bothered by this. And I think also that also helps in how you do the work for that client, how you show up, how you are. You're just like happy. So we grew a team and I grew an agency. And that went on for like a couple of years. I will be quite honest with you. I loved COVID. A lot of people hated COVID. I personally, if it wants to do the rounds again and come back, I'm not saying no.
I know you said you
I'm
wanted
just,
little babies in the future. You may change your tune once you've had kids. Like, it had been my husband and I think we would have loved COVID, but I've got a raging extrovert for a son who would literally see the mailman on the street and go frowning out the front door, social distancing, of course, but would
yes.
have talked to the walls. So
Yeah. But for me, it was such a great time. I was like, my husband was home all the time. All my clients were just a laptop away. Everybody wanted to be online. So I had offers coming left, right, and center. So again, I say COVID, greatest time. It also taught me a lot of balancing. Like we had to hire very quickly, we had to grow very quickly, and I really enjoyed it. But I will say this, like you mentioned, another good point. I do want to have littles one day, and I still thought this cannot function without me.
Yeah, well, that's such a good point too. If you're going toward the agency model, so anyone listening, you get to decide. So for me, my business will always have me. I'm the Nope Coach. I'm the name of my business. I'm the linchpin. It's mostly me with subcontractors. But some people, and it sounds like the case for yourself, if you're building an agency and you have people that you're subcontracting, employing, or whatever, so that it can go without you, especially if you want to have maternity leave or whatever, then you get to decide the model that you're building, and you get to try both and see what you like.
Yeah. For me, I felt like my clients had the better experience when it was me and not other people. So I have now found that it always has to be with me, but a version of it. I'm still figuring that out. And I guess when we introduce littles, it's going to like change a little bit. But I also feel like this is the best version. And that's the nice thing. You get to try things. And if they fail, you learn from them. And I don't know about you, Suzanne, but I was brought up to always be like very polite and not say no, and like very like tick boxes. And in that, I just always wanted to get it done. Like I just was like, okay, we can figure it out. Okay, we can figure it out. Like my needs were the last needs, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes,
You see what I'm saying?
I love this. It's like, yeah, we can figure it out, but we never pause to ask, do we actually want to figure this out? Like, is this something I'm interested in? Is this my problem? Is this, your inability to be organized, as horrible as it sounds, isn't my issue sometimes. And it's like, do I want to be putting out fires, or do I want to be like, this is the way I run my business? Are you in? Let's go. Or, yeah, no, I don't do that. But not from a, like, you matter less or whatever. It's just, it doesn't light me up.
Exactly. And the thing is, once you establish those kind of very clear boundaries, what you will and won't do, what you will and won't offer, the type of clients that how you communicate with them, like there were people in the beginning, like this is a good thing to note, like who they would send me an email and I would have to reply. Why? I don't have to reply. They don't need to reply. Like my contract, which is another thing, which I love that I have one, like that I started with one, said I have to reply in 24 hours. So why am I breaking my own boundaries? Why am I creating that loophole to allow people to enter my space? And why am I replying on weekends? No.
Yes.
So once you have those really nice boundaries in place and you say, I only work Monday to Friday, my weekends are for myself, my public holidays are for myself and my family, I will reply to you in 24 hours. If it's an actual emergency, like, for example, I had a client once whose ad account was being hacked. And yeah, that was terrible. So that's an actual emergency. I jumped on. It was a Saturday. I jumped on and we got the hackers out, an actual emergency. But you asking me, do you like this shade of orange, which is a true question I've received, is not an emergency, and you do not need me to reply right now.
That's such a great point too. So in your line of business, I can see someone being hacked is an actual emergency. In my line of business, there are no actual emergencies. And I actually say to my clients, they have an onboarding agreement. And part of the thing I say to them, I left the medical field for a reason. If there is an actual emergency, go to the emergency room. I can't help you. So, but it can sound tongue in cheek, but I'm very serious. But in your case, there could be. But also too, if you have those guidelines, like I'll respond, mine is Monday to Thursday, 8 till 5 Sydney Australian time. You can message me at any time, and you can send me as many messages as you like. It's my responsibility to put my phone on silent or whatever, depending on how they contact me. But this is when I'll respond, and being really clear with this. But I'm just mindful of your time, speaking of boundaries, because I don't want to go as past. So if you're wanting to come back, we can totally do another.
Want to stay.
Yeah, we can totally do another episode.
Oh,
of course they want to stay. This is fascinating. So all this to say, so do you still have it in that model now, like more agency model, where you have the people that you outsource to? And it's, tell us all about, in this remaining time, what it is that you do, how you help people, and how they can find you if they're like, actually, because ads, are they even ready for ads? Like, how would they know? A lot of my listeners are more new to business. Like they probably have had a few sales, but they're like, do I want ads? Do I not? I've never known how to answer this. And I've been honest, this isn't my area of expertise. So take it away. If someone comes to you and is like, am I ready? How would they know?
Yeah. So in that, I would say it's very simple. So I have a quiz. It's on my website on Carol Kabaale /quiz. It's a quiz on your readiness score if you're ready to run ads. I personally mostly work with coaches, online coaches. If you identify yourself as this, there's many titles, so I don't want to go into all of them, but there's many types
online
of
service provider.
Service. Yes, if you identify those, I can help you. I could probably help you. That is the type of client I work with. I don't work with physical products or things like that. And the model that I have right now is it's myself. So you will be onboarded with myself and we'll have a conversation. We will see your offer. You must have a tried and tested offer, guys. You don't want to be testing with ads because it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping it's going to stick. No one flipping wants that. And then I do have other amazing partners. So if you need help with a landing page or your website or your copy, there are people I will kind of make an introduction with, but I'm always there because we're really good friends. So I might be also on the call just to hear from an ads point of view, but they know what they're doing. They know what they offer, and you are in very good hands. I wouldn't give you those people if I didn't trust them, because that's one of my core values too. I just need to be surrounded by good, amazing people.
100%.
So,
and this might be a how long is a piece of string question, so feel free to say if you can't answer it. But if people are like, okay, I'm going to make the call, I'm going to do your quiz, I'm interested, what kind of budget do they need to start with for their ads, like a daily budget ad spend?
I love this question. It is kind of like how long is a piece of string, but as a baseline, I would take whatever currency you're listing in, take the equivalent of 20 US dollars and run the ad for 7 days. In that time, you will measure whatever your objective is. If your objective is to get leads or to get emails into your email list, or if it is to get more calls in your calendar, you figure out what your objective is. Now, let's say let's use baby numbers because again, math sometimes, but let's use baby numbers. If you have $20 that you're spending a day and you get 20 emails, because that's what you're trying to collect, it means that your cost per result is $1. So every time you spend $1, you get 1 email. Now, if you only get 2 emails in that day, that means it costs you $10 to get 2 emails, right? So 10 plus 10 gives you 20. So there's a lot of factors that will come up with how you get to that numbers. I always say I can't control them. It's by the algorithm gods. They will decide it, but there are things you can do to mitigate them, like having strong copy, good landing pages, a great offer. All these things can make it being shown the right offer to the right person, because the person's looking for something and they're like, oh yes, that's a solution. So it's a quick conversion, right? And if you have those little things right, you will create a baseline, and then you'll know, okay, it cost me $10 to get 2 new people in my email list. So I need to spend $20 every single day to get 2 new people in my email list. Am I willing to do that? And again, back to boundaries, you have to sit with yourself and you have to think, is this investment worth it for me? Is this enough? Do I need to spend more or do I need to spend less? Again, it's a conversation you need to have with yourself. I will always do forecasting for my clients and say, this is how the ads are looking. How much are you willing to invest? And whether you want to invest like thousands or you're like, Carol, I want to invest 100, good for you. You just have to be happy with the outcome that it's going to give you.
I think that is such a good thing to look at, because looking at emails, like, if you get 10 people to your email or 2 people or whatever you said, then if you look at your data, so like when eventually I do ads, not doing them yet, but it will be to get people onto my email list. I know when I send an offer to my email list, how many people convert, like how many people tend to buy in general. And then it's like, so is it going to be worthwhile for the long time value? And what is the cost of a client acquisition, like from those emails to turn into a client? And then for me, it's the lifetime value of a client, because sometimes too, the cost to acquire the client might seem quite high, but then once they're in your world, they're like, I love all of your stuff, I'm going to buy everything. It's like Hotel California, except you're allowed to leave. So I do have quite a long journey, like it's organic, but from people finding me to people actually buying my thing is quite long. And will it still be as long? Will they still need to be warmed up so long? Or there's all these things to factor in. But as you said, you can have that conversation with them. And is it worth it to you? Because for some people, that would be like, that's way too expensive. And for some people, it would be like, let's go. And only you can decide that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think first step is definitely figuring out, are you ready to run ads, right? Second step, figuring out, is it worth it to your business. And then after that, make a decision, you know, look within yourself and look within what you're currently doing. And, you know, not to shame anyone or say anything. I'm just gonna, because I feel like this is a safe space. Sometimes we invest in things that don't move the needle, right? You know, we think if we buy this book, it's going to help us this. If we invest in this
If we
coach,
hire this coach,
if we hire this coach, if we buy this service, if we redo our website. I'm not saying that what I do is foolproof, but what I am saying is that when you invest in something like ads, you're investing in yourself, because you're saying this is an opportunity for me to convert this person. Whereas everything else is kind of like, maybe they like my branding, maybe they don't. Maybe the coach will be good, maybe it won't. This one is more on you.
I like what you're saying there too. And also with the ads, you get data. Like you can say, on average, I get this many people, and then they stay this long before they buy, and they like this more than that, and you can compare. Whereas when you're doing your branding or your whatever else it is, which thing was it? Did they like the size 14 purple aubergine more than this, you know? So sometimes we can get stuck in procrastinate this or procrastinate that, or trying to do everything and not knowing which thing works. So I do like the data side of ads, as in the mathematical brain can calculate it a bit more. And I do like the idea of being able to reach cold or fresh or new people, because with ads, it's helping when people are looking for something that it pops up. Like I was listening to a podcast the other day, shout out if you're listening to this, Tish. She's been on my podcast. No, she hasn't yet. But I've been on hers. Anyway, long story short, she was talking about Mother, like the energy drink, on her podcast. And I was like, I've never had that. Like the next day, sponsored ad, Mother energy drinks. I was like, the pixels and stuff are magic. But, you know, so if people are looking for it, and all this to say, so if people are like, okay, I'm not sure, go to Carol's website, the link and the quiz will be in the show notes. Do the quiz. Have a look. Now, if they do the quiz and they think they want to talk to you, is there like a step where they can book like a discovery call or whatever you call it, you know, the stage before they're like, here, take my money?
So the quiz is quite fun. The quiz is quite fun. I've actually been very direct in the quiz. You'll either be told, yes, you're ready for ads, or you'll be told, no, you're not ready for ads. And if you are, you will be invited to have a conversation, or there's different ways that we can work together. Those will be presented to you. And if you aren't, I provide you a couple of resources to get you started, or to think about what is the missing piece to get you to be ready to run ads. So yeah, the quiz is quite fun in that sense. Like it's really cute. And it's only like 9 questions. So it's not going to be like filling out 50,000 things. No one has time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that. I love it. Thank you so much for joining me, Carol. I'll definitely have you back, because I'm sure there's lots of segues we can go. If you are listening to this and you have questions, if you're watching on YouTube, pop it in the chat below. And if Carol doesn't see it, I'll follow up with her. And if you want to contact me through my website, suzanneculberg.com, go to my contact page. It's fun. Sounds like it's fun, like Carol's quiz, but you'll know whether or not I'm for you or not when you look at the contact page on my website. So thank you for joining us. We'll hope to catch you on the next one. Bye for now.